Dude, what have you done to kind of get the funky blue lighting in the background?
Oh man, you should see my setup right now. So actually, I have like these Amazon like lights,
Oh,
and then I have
nice.
them all over, and then I have another light here, and then I actually put a blanket. Because the thing is, I only have one window, and then it just basically it just lights up half my face, so I look like Two-Face.
Okay.
But yeah,
Uh,
it's
Are
just
you
it's just
are
a
you-
whole bunch
are,
of LEDs.
are you like streaming and shit, or did you do it especially for this?
No, 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 no. I have to work this way. If I don't work this way, I don't work. Like I have to
Oh, so
feel
it's
like I'm
like you.
at nighttime all the time. I'm one
Really?
of those
Wow.
people.
Right. Dude, that must be an LA thing because because it's probably got a lot to do with the fact that you guys just have sun 365 days a year.
Perhaps. Perhaps.
So like some people I mean some people think like, oh yeah, I'd love it if it was like that all the time, but I think subconsciously, you need change.
Yeah.
And
And plus we're as designers, no, we always feed like we always want like something different. We get bored easily, so like there's even small little things that I'll do like certain days it's blue light, some certain days it's red light. I have a certain soundtrack. If I'm really in the zone and if I'm following a model, let's just say through Clay, I'll always play one song and one song only just so I can retain that like momentum. I'm one of those people I can
what?
listen to the same song like 100 times. My wife freaking
No.
hates it. She hates it because like if I go on a road trip, I'll just play that one song over and over again. It just numbs you out. Like I like it. I do a lot of painting as well, and like that's like I heard this one artist talk about music and art one time, and it just like totally resonated. And like I use that formula for everything I do.
Fuck,
Like
that's
music is a hundred
amazing.
percent like number one inspiration for everything.
But the same track over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not one of those dudes that have like a catalog and like, oh, this is like for this. I'm like, I just go with what I feel like, like it's design and like art and just like even just being awake and like really feeling what you want is a really an emotional experience. So like whatever it takes to kind of guide me through that, I'll do it. And it comes down to like even wearing all black, a certain day. It's a mental thing, no? I mean, we all wear black,
Yeah, 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 yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
it's just those small little things that like I realize that I'm a little bit more sensitive to like those little my little surroundings, and if I could just cheat my way into there real quick and just get it over with and just get my shit done, like I'm gonna do it. So that's why I have blue lights everywhere. I have like a pink flamingo over here and like
Nice, nice, dude. I totally relate to that. But like, and like, music is a really fucking important part of my life. But I cannot listen to the same song over and over again. It drive me fucking nuts. It drive me nuts. But I mean, at the same but I'm also like hypersensitive to it as well. Like if
yeah.
it's I I need music, but if somebody puts on like shit that is not vibing with me, I really struggle to just kind of suck it up.
Yeah.
It really drives me crazy.
Well, at
It
least you know what
really,
you
really,
like.
yeah, no, it definitely it drives me fucking crazy.
That's
But I
awesome.
can't yeah, I can't like, so if you were to drive for like 4 hours, you could happily have that one track on over and over again.
To be honest, if it was 4 hours, I would just have the same album over and over. And that album is probably like 50 minutes, so I'll just keep looping it around.
Wow,
I love that. I
amazing.
love the repetition for some. That's funny because I like the repetition on that, but for me, when it comes to me producing something and it's too repetitive, I'm like, no, I don't want to do it.
Yeah, yeah, but that's a different mindset though, isn't it? I mean, it's yeah, because doing something over and over again is that's a different thing. Then it becomes work. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
It becomes tedious, but in some sense there is beauty in it. I don't know. Everything it's with a grain of salt, no? It's like certain things like I can sit there and like pull a CV for hours and like just get lost in it, no? Like and you're just like, "Wait a minute, I gotta go to sleep." And there's days where you can just like noodle around and just like, why, if the review's tomorrow, like, why am I still sketching like all these things? It's just you get lost in those moments and like, and then you realize, I've realized like, especially with music, like if you have a hard time describing your intention in your design or whatever, you can almost look back to the song that you were looking at and deconstruct it and then
Yeah,
pull
I
visuals
yeah
from
yeah yeah
that.
yeah
And
yeah
there's a
yeah
lot
yeah
of
yeah.
cool things, and you hear the artist interview and you hear what was behind the song, and then it creates a different meaning to what it's almost like you're collaborating without physically collaborating. I always like just working with people. It's so if I can like artificially do that, then it's good.
Wow, Dan, that's really interesting. I mean, I get that as well. I can listen if I'm in a certain frame of mind and it's a certain album, I can definitely listen to an album on loop, but I could not listen to the same song uh, over and over again.
Yeah.
But I know exactly what you mean with regard to, you know, being in. You can be working on something, and in a and listening to something in the background, and you kind of get into. There's a connection between what you're hearing and what's kind of happening inside,
Yeah.
and to kind of get back to that pattern of thought, if you kind of get lost later on, the music or those sounds can almost reset you back into that frame of mind.
Yeah. It's like smell, no? There's like I've always been infatuated with, I mean, we all are, but the whole sensory experience, no? Like the idea of like just curating smell, sound, and like visuals together. And when you start ripping them apart, it's always interesting to see if you see the same thing that you originally intended. Like I did this project for my senior thesis in Art Center, and the idea of it, sorry to kind of go on to a
No,
different
you
tangent,
carry on. You go for it. Go
but
for
there
it.
was this one project where I was already hired into Nissan, so I was thinking, all right, well, I'm going to take a little bit more chance with this one, and I wanted to create like this kind of hypercar at the time that was designed without a sketch, and it was just purely designed by um, out of the five senses, only four because I was not going to cook. It was smell, sight, touch, and then audible, like hearing. So over time, like I had a bit of time during before that to kind of start curating stuff. So like I went around downtown LA looking for like perfumes and stuff like that, and I was getting a bit frustrated because a lot of times as a student, if you only have like a couple $100 in your bank account and you're going around LA looking for these exotic smells that cost $400 or $500, it's not the most economical thing to do. So like you're just going around trying to find stuff, and it's interesting because like we bumped into this one store, and it was just this one smell that it was the most odd. um it just pulled you in, but it wasn't something I would ever wear, or I would never know someone that would wear it, but it pulled me into a way that I could almost see the song. So as I had a little like SoundCloud playlist and I started mixing it up, and then I just bashed some YouTube like imageries, kind of more like visual graphics. And then there was this one ring that I found. It was by Gareth Pugh. He's a I think he's based out of UK, if I'm not mistaken. Really kind of avant-garde type of ring. And all those three elements together, like I thought, well, if I could always have these elements here with me, like if I always have the perfume here, always play that song, have those visuals printed out, and then have that ring on, like just keep looking at it and just model it from that point on. What could I come up with? No. Yeah, so the senior thesis was, as I mentioned before, it was just kind of like a sensory experience, no? So it was the four senses and utilizing those as a sketch method, a visual sketch method, like not physically putting it out on paper. One thing is like I've always I say back in the day, but it was only 2008 when I first got there. And I was looking around and it just everyone's stuff was just like there was so much personality in it. And at some point, Art Center started to kind of like be a bit more strict, like you has to be this tall off the wall, the posters can't go here, it has to be this type of print, it has to have like the rendering should be around here. And then so it was fun because at that time I was like, you know what, screw it, I'm just gonna go for it. No, so I brought a projector and I just played this freaking like huge YouTube video thing, and then I had these four pedestals with all of the objects and iPad headphones, the ring. And they're all bottom lit with these same blue lights. That's why I have them here. They're just kind of like a carryover, but um, and the cool thing is like I never shed a light on the model. It was just all reflections. Like you could never see the model. And that's all. It was just that. There was no sketches, there was nothing. And it was more of like a show of just how I like to think and like how do I try to approach things. And it was just really cool because at that moment, I think because I did a longer internship at Nissan and I was starting to see the realistic side of it. And then jumping back into school to graduate, you're just like, screw
My
this. Like, I'm just
last
going to go
chance.
all
Yeah.
out. No, like,
Yeah.
and that was really, really cool. And I encourage that for everyone. Like, if you're doing a senior thesis and you paid that much money for school, if you put all that money in a pot and you go, how much, like, how am I going to make my mark? And it's going to cost that much money. Like, you're going to think a bit different. Don't think shyer, just think bolder, no?
Yeah. Yeah, dude, that makes a lot of sense. But the thing is, I mean, you also had it was you were in a really fortunate position as well to know that you kind of already had this position lined up.
Yeah, I think at that point, though, I halfway, right before I got my internship, I was actually going to drop out of Art Center and I was applying to CCS because Art Center was way too expensive.
But is
Um,
CCS also not expensive?
at 19 years old, I didn't know any better until I got hey, like, and I was like, oh man, this is it's actually the same amount, and I actually just took off like I think a term or two, I don't remember. And that's kind of when I started devising my portfolio. And I applied to Nissan like three times. And I think after the third time, they just kind of felt bad for me. They're just like, all right, come in.
Were they was that for your internship first or
Yeah, so okay, I'll go through the timeline. I started Art Center in 2000, summer 2010. As you know, Art Center typically has 8 terms, so if you're in fourth, fifth term, that's kind of like sophomore into junior year. Um, So that's where I was when I applied. And from that point on, I actually never returned to Art Center. So I completed the half of my education in Nissan. So I did a 3-month internship, extended 3 months, and then I was fortunate enough that they offered me kind of a contract design position for a year and a half until I either graduated or I figured out what I was going to do with a diploma to like show up and go, hey, I have a diploma, I can work now.
oh shit, that's awesome.
But I couldn't, I use that as like every single cent of that paycheck was just like, I was
Back
capped
in
out on student loans and stuff like that. So that was just funding everything. So for that half, I was just dabbling back in, asking them, can I take a class here and there? And they were really, really supportive of it. And I think it was also because, I think they realize everyone's circumstances are a bit different, case to case. But I was really fortunate. And then in 2015, literally the day after I graduated, I started with Nissan as an official employee. And then I just left them in a month ago in August. And I
oh
just joined
shit.
Genesis with Tony. So Tony's my manager.
No, really? Oh fuck.
It's a big circle.
Jesus, I had no idea. I mean, I knew you knew Tony, but I didn't realize you were
No, no, no,
there.
no, no.
Oh right.
So exact right when you posted Tony's photo, I mean, no, sorry, his podcast, your guys' collaboration, I just started, so I was like, whoa, this is cool.
Oh shit. Okay, wow. But do you know him like pretty well since before you started there?
I don't know if he knows of me, but I known him. You know when you follow somebody, like
Okay,
not
okay,
creepy,
right.
but
Okay.
as I was mentioning a bit earlier, like I followed him since actually in high school. When I was 2007, I was a senior in high school, and there was this thing called Deviant Art. There was these two
Yes.
guys. It was Tony Chen, and it was I'm gonna mispronounce his name, but I think it was Emre Hussein or there was another guy as well. He works at
Yes.
B&W.
Yeah, I think
Anyhow,
yeah.
but
Yeah, yeah.
Tony was one of two or three. And over time, I just kept watching him, and it was one of three guys that was only online. Today, I mean, you have a whole sea of people online,
Yes.
but and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
it's funny because DeviantArt went down and it went to something else, and then it went to like Facebook and stuff like that. And I was always following him, and it's funny because when I was listening to your podcast with him, it was a different picture than I ever imagined. It was a very polished from the other side, like great sketches. You get like, oh man, this guy's got it. But to hear kind of some of the overcomes that he had to go through, and just being really humble and being very honest about that process, is like it painted a whole different picture for me. Like just the other day when I listened to it, so that was really really cool to hear that side of the story.
Well, dude, I mean, this is the thing, it's like, and he wasn't being coy about it, he was just being brutally honest. Like,
Oh, he was.
he didn't, it wasn't fucking handed to him on a plate. And he knows, he obviously has confidence in his abilities and what he brings to the table. But,
Yeah,
he's like, I wasn't always like this. I had to work really fucking hard. And I
yeah,
didn't get in first time. I didn't get in second time. My mom remortgaged her house.
yeah.
And there was some crazy shit at stake. So
That's
it's
crazy.
it's amazing to hear stuff like that. And it's I mean it's so fucking inspiring as well because it also
Yeah,
makes people realize that just because you might not have what you think is talent at a certain thing, if you really 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 want to make it happen and you're willing to put in the work, well, fuck, you can do anything.
yeah, yeah. You're absolutely right. I mean, that's the part that I feel is sometimes lacking um, in today's landscape when you're going back into schools or even online or even sometimes. I mean, I've been a victim of it where you just go, oh, it's how come I'm not that yet? No, and you don't realize that whole process. And then, but then you realize that the longer and well, I don't know how to say this, but the harder the falls, the bigger the bounces, and with that you feel a bit more fulfilled at the end of the day. Even though you're out of there with scars and battle wounds, but you feel much more accomplished when you actually, and not saying that you purposely want to go through those scenarios, but even like you just or any of us just trying to find out how to sketch, how to design, how to even comprehend what people are saying, how to fit in into a certain environment. Those things are just like those are things that are never really talked about. So it's really cool to hear people just be very candid about that stuff.
Yeah,
Even
yeah.
to that level of even just the personal level. No.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's yeah, it was really cool that he shared as much as he did, because
Yeah.
not everybody's willing to do that. And I think, but there's a hell of a lot of value in it, isn't there?
Yeah.
But
Totally.
Dan, where are you from originally?
So I'm from New Jersey.
New
Born and raised in New
Jersey.
Jersey. Not
Wow.
the Jersey Shore, but I was like 15 minutes
W-
away from New York City. So like I moved out of there. I graduated high
Edison.
No, no, no. Actually, I was in
Red
it's
Hook.
called Union County. It's just like
Yeah.
it's like by Newark, Elizabeth, Linden, that area.
Dude, there's
Um,
such a fucking great music scene there.
oh, there is, but at that time I did not appreciate music,
Did you not? No.
unfortunately. But there is. I mean, and New York City is just like you feel the vibrate. That's when I realized, like, dude, I'm a city boy. Like, I need to be around, fluorescent lights and like just vibrating grounds, things that don't stop. Like, when you feel that type of energy, you just feel like you're getting charged up. It's like you're winding up, no, and you just kind of explode with like intent. I was living in San Diego for a while, and if I wasn't traveling every year, I'd get bottled up and I'd get like very odd. I don't know what it was
Really?
about it.
Wow.
And my wife was the same way too. We're very, very similar in that. And
Is she from New Jersey as well?
yeah, we met in high school in a freshman year.
Wow.
So it's been a long ride, but yeah, I was 17. I literally packed my car up and I drove cross country. I came out to California thinking like, hey, I'm gonna go to art center, no, not realizing that it costs like half my body just to finance the first term.
But you
Um,
didn't know how, did you not know any of this shit before you got there?
Listen, I was 17 years old. Like I thought I knew everything and I didn't. I came here, my mom was like, "All right, well, I can't really help you out too much, but like, let's just start you off like with a small room." And then she's like, "Here's, here's $50 a month." And I was like, "All right, this is fine." And I thought, not in California, I mean, $50, you can spend that in a day. And
Yeah,
so I
yeah.
had no idea. And you're just going through it and you're like, "All right, well, do I just apply or like," and I was really silly. I should have been a bit more prepared. I knew where I wanted to go. I knew what I wanted to do, but I just didn't know how to approach it. And then also at 17 years old, you're a bit immature. So I took about 2 years to work up. I worked at the student store. I took a lot of like tutoring, like one-on-ones. Um, and I just built like we just built a lot of friends. We had that art center at night that Tony was mentioning. It's like this preparatory course, no? It's like I don't know. It's a bit weird, but you're all pretending like it's art center, but it's not. So you guys are all just amped up and everything, and then I finally got in, and I just remember going like, "Holy crap!" Like I never thought. And then once you get to that point, you're just like, "All right, now what?" No, and then you don't realize how much work it is. That school, I mean, holy crap, man! It's like I've never worked so hard in my life. I mean, even till this day, it was just like every single day, like just the amount of work and everything was manual at that. That was right at the end of the manual phase. So we're still doing, you know, uh, 20 to 30, 20 by 40 vellums every week. That was just for one class. Another Viscom class where we're doing like if there's a smudge on the or a fingerprint on the edge of the paper, you have to do double. You're masking things off. You have these color theory courses where you actually like you had to do field research, and it was just an immense amount of work. Um, and when I came back, to make a bit short of a story, when I came back from Nissan, everything was digital, and I'm like, what do I do now? So you come back like a year and a half, 2 years, and you have all these kind of like these hot shots, like these kids that are just they can do Photoshop or even like they started doing Alias with a blink of an eye. And of course, interning, you had to do a lot of that stuff, but it's to a different level. You're getting an item done, whereas in school you're trying to stylize it and put your own energy into it. So I always felt that was much, much harder. But it was just interesting just to see that like I was at the very end of that phase and then coming back and seeing that digital era and you're just like so in that sense, like there was some merit in like you hear a lot of people talk about the vellum days, the marker stuff. Like there's something about like the manual side. Even just yesterday, I was just still like markers and paper. Like if there's something behind that there's that tactical feeling, there's that romance with the paper, and you can't undo. There's no control Z. That's the number one thing. And there's just things that, hey, if that stroke is in the middle of the body side, you got to make it work or you crumple it and you move on. There's no like I'm gonna save like body side 001 dash A 001 dash B. No, there's none of that bullshit. No. So it's a lot more. That process still is like, man, it's so much fun to still just pick up pen and paper and just like really hash it out. And when you do it and people see it in the studio, people are just like, fuck, that's really cool. No.
Who taught you to use Photoshop?
Actually, so in high school, I had my my girlfriend and I, my wife, we were taking like this like uh weird like advanced graphic design course, and we had this guy. His name was we called him Mr. Bosco. He was this really cool guy and really young at the time, and he came in with fire. He was just like, "Listen, you guys got to know Photoshop. This is the future." Da, da, da. And he just like we would have to memorize like he would give us like blank. He would Photoshop the Photoshop screen and take out all the icons and be like, "Where do you put this? Like, what should belong there?" And like he would. It was just mental, no?
What?
And
Awesome.
so I never, ever, 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 ever knew that I would ever use it again. I'm like, dude, what the hell is this? This is BS, no? Go to Art Center. I'm like, oh, they don't really use Photoshop. Dude, once I had to pop it open, it was the best thing in the world. No, obviously I didn't know how to like when you're on a tablet, you're like, why am I sketching on this blank thing and it's going up there? No, that was a whole other learning curve. But in terms of the technical aspect, it was like that was nice to already be there. And I can imagine like I talked to my brothers. My brother, we're 13 years apart. They're twins. I think they just turned 18. And I talked to them like, do you guys learn? They're like, oh, we know Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, After Effects. Like they learned this stuff in high school. I'm like, well, there you go.
Fucking hell, dude!
It's a different world.
Yeah, no, it's a totally different world. A totally different world. Yeah, that's pretty mental. I mean, we definitely didn't have any of that stuff at school for
Yeah.
sure. I don't even know. Dude, I honestly, I mean, I did go to school in South Africa, so
Oh, that's
there's
cool.
there is
Are you
that.
from
But
South
yeah,
Africa?
yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
cool,
I'm South
cool.
African, yeah. And but I definitely didn't. I don't even think I knew what Photoshop was at school, and then college, which I mean, college in the UK is not. I know college in America is university,
Yeah.
but college in the UK is like just below university. It's like what you do off between school and university. I did like an access course,
Okay.
and there wasn't I they had like a Mac room with a bunch with the whole Adobe suite on there,
Yeah.
but there wasn't really anybody that was able to like show me how to use it, you know. So
Yeah.
it was kind of like I got really excited when I learned how to. I'm not even fucking bullshitting that you where I took photos on a digital camera. I plugged the camera into the computer and brought and cropped the photo in Photoshop. And I was like, I learned some fucking real shit today.
That's awesome.
I was so fucking happy because it was like it took.
Hey, some of
Yeah.
the
So
album covers you see today look like that, no?
yeah. Exactly.
Where did you go to
Exactly.
school?
Um. Well, I what university or like school like.
Well, what's your actually? How did you learn about car design, and then what was that progression like into your career?
Well, okay. I thought I'm asking fucking questions here, Dan.
I'm curious
But
though. I'm a very curious guy.
so I kind of, I was, yeah, I don't know. I didn't know car design was a thing.
Okay.
I was born, grew up in South Africa, graduated, finished scraped through high school, and then went over to London on a kind of, me and some of my homeboys went over on just a fucking gap year, basically. And that kind of turned into two. And then the second year, I was like, what am I going to do now? And I was always artistic as a kid, but all through high school, I didn't do any drawing stuff or painting or anything like that at all because I was kind of like encouraged like to focus on shit like accounting and stupid stuff like that. And then I mean, I obviously didn't use any of that stuff, and I couldn't, and I was terrible at it. So that's why I just like academically, I was not interested at all. And then I started drawing again in the UK. And then my girlfriend at the time suggested, well, why don't you like become a car designer? And I was like, oh fuck, that's a thing, because I was drawing a lot of cars.
Yeah.
And then I started doing my research, and I found out about this place called the RCA, but that was like post grad only. I didn't even know what post grad meant. I was
Yeah.
like, what is that? Like, I was like, cool, the course is just 2 years. And obviously that's a master's program, right? So you've got to go and do the undergraduate first, and then the next best thing at the time, at least in the UK, was Coventry. And but because I had no creative subjects as academically, I had to go and do an access course at college,
I see.
and I did that like part time while I was working full time in the UK, and then and that
I
was
remember
it.
the rest of that story. That's when you met the guy from Jaguar and okay.
Yeah.
That's
So I
cool.
don't,
That's
yeah.
cool.
So it's kind
So
of yeah. That was it. So I read about there's a South African guy called Keith Halford who was I picked up this book about design, and I saw his picture there with this Jaguar XJ220, which was
yeah.
the car that he was kind of well known for, and that was kind of like I don't know, my North Star at the time. I was like, wow, cool. That, like, he's South African too. Like, I can also do it.
Yeah.
There's that kind of thing. And then I met him actually. I got to intern with him on in a project in Cape Town on an electric car actually back in 2008.
Who'd have
But
thought that?
yeah, I know. Well, dude, at the time it was like there was like a lot of hype around like electric versus hydrogen,
Okay.
but it wasn't like it was the technology just wasn't there yet.
That's
So
probably around the GM skateboard time, no?
I yes, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah. So it was quite an interesting period, and yeah, great internship and all that sort of stuff.
that's
But
cool.
yeah, that's kind of how I found out about car design. So it's very yeah, I was never really a quote unquote petrol head, but I mean, I've always been attracted to cars. I love cars,
Yeah,
and but I'm attracted to the sculpture and the emotion.
yeah, yeah. That's interesting because my on that tangent, like when my family is heavily into cars, like my mom, my stepdad, like everyone, my grandmother, they were all they're the type that when a car comes by, they'll argue with you like, no, it's a 58, it's a 58, and like, no, it's a 59. Like, trust me, it's a 58. They didn't have this type of tail light in that time, and
Yeah.
and you just sit there and like, all right, whatever. Like it. So in my family, it was funny because like they also like my stepdad was doing drag racing and he also did karting, and my mom,
Oh
when she was
wow.
a lot younger, she used to do kind of like street racing like in New York.
Jesus,
So
wow.
there was a lot of like there's a lot of gasoline in the blood, and it was weird though because like as a kid I freaking hated cars because they would drag me to every Saturday morning, they would
Ah,
drag me to the
okay.
drag strip, and I'm like, dude, I want to watch like Power Rangers or like I don't want to watch like these cars like blasting down just for 10 seconds every time, no? And then it was funny because like at that moment, like, when you're just beyond bored, you just start looking at things, you try to see meaning. And I think that was the first time I ever saw like a car, and it was just like once you saw it, you're sitting it there. It's just the stances, the big radials in the back, and then all the heat distortion, and you just see the lights coming on. They're kind of flickering because of the lack of electricity in the car. Probably the alternator is going, and this thing just rips, and it just on two wheels, and you just see sparks everywhere because there's no wheelie bar. And at that point, I was like, "Fuck, cars are human, man." This is like someone getting pissed off, like just running down like if you're in a 100 meter dash or something like that, no, like it's the same idea. And then like you start looking at it and you're like, why do people just like why do these grown men with families just like sit here and just like polish their carburetors all day, like, and you start realizing it's a whole different there's a romance to it, and like and then they started appreciating, like the okay, well, this car is too clean. You have to have the one with, a little bit of dent because it shows a story. And like, and then when you start hearing a lot of that, there was like, that's how I got into cars. And the only reason was because like I used to play around with wrestling toys. I used to love WWF.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so like I was into the theatrics, the lights, and then the, Stone Cold going on the thing and making the chaos and Triple H, and I used to love
Shawn Michaels, the Heartbreak Kid.
exactly, exact. All that drama was cool, and then you saw that relating into cars, like kind of similar. And then you saw like some of the auto shows and how they try to be it. And then like a lot of times there was this era of uh like wrestling toys that like people were really into the realism of it. So like there was this online forum that they would get like epoxy and like resculpt the face or give them more like actual muscles, not like a stupid little toy thing. No. And so I got into that, and then naturally you're like, all right, well, why don't I do that with die-cast cars? So you're putting the worst clay. It doesn't even stick on there. You're just putting like polymer clay on there, and that's how I freaking found out about it.
Oh,
It
so
was just
you were doing that?
I had no idea. I honestly you're just bored. I was the only child. My mom worked, tons of hours. She was, for a while it was the only parent. And then when she met my stepdad, they were just always working, no? Then they had two boys, and so I was always keeping myself entertained. And you didn't have like I remember then it all made sense because I saw Chip Foose in like a hot rod magazine, and it was
Ship
like
Foose
a
and
good
What's the other guy's name who's died now? Boyd Coddington,
Yes, yes, yes.
American
Yeah,
Hot
yeah,
Rod.
yeah. And they
Yeah,
do, the super long like Cadillacs, and they're just like they're sitting there with the chart pack markers, and you're just
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
is that real or is that a photo?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, dude, I mean, I only discovered him and those guys around college time. So, like, while I was discovering the whole car design
I
thing,
see.
and there was because had those shows, right? And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I used to watch them pretty religiously, and I was just obsessed with it. And then I remember at college, like I was like, okay, well, I need to get hold of like an airbrush set, because I didn't know like how the fuck do people make these images. And there was a guy actually, Nicky Cui is his name.
Okay.
He's now he's an American guy, I believe, who is he's in Sweden now. I
Okay.
think I don't know if he's at Geely or Lincoln Co, one of those companies. But I remember seeing sketches of his online. This is like 2002, 2003, maybe 2003. And I was like, how do you do this? Like,
Yeah.
I was like, and of course nobody at college could really show me. And then I found out that, well, I saw like, yeah, Chip Foose with his airbrush kits. I was like, I need to get hold of one of those. And then the college got hold of one, and I just couldn't fucking use it. It was like
Oh, they're
just,
hard.
yeah, it's just like because I didn't know about masking.
Yeah. But even
Anyway,
even the tip and then the needle, how far you set it in, and then how close, and then it's a
yeah,
whole
yeah,
art. It's a whole, and now
yeah,
we're just in Photoshop, like
exactly,
it's the
yeah,
complete
yeah,
opposite. But
yeah, absolutely.
I'm not complaining
But
though.
no, 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 but that's pretty mad, dude.
I still
But
try to use a airbrush every now and then, and like for painting, and it's just hard, man. It's a lot of upkeep. There's so much cleaning and stuff. So I just go in with like a spray can, and you just go like from far away.
yeah, but now that you ask me, actually, like I mean, I was always a creative kid. Like I would say up until like 13, probably when I got into high school, then all of that kind of melted into the background. But I remember like my dad also had a workshop, and I was always like kind of making shit in there. I remember
Yeah.
this sounds so cheesy and it's like so unromantic, but I got a block of wood, and I made a fucking letter opener, of all
That's
things.
awesome. Are you
But
sure it
it
was a
was like
letter opener?
but it was like it was basically like it was like I got a block of wood, and I one half is like the handles, so you round off the edges and whatever. But then I made this like, you made the transition from like this kind of rectangular shape into this thin blade. And I remember just getting obsessed with that, with the like just the contours and the sections and all
I
that
see.
sort of stuff. And I just remembered about that now. But it was that, yeah, that the first time also that I saw like a clay model
Yeah.
online, I wanted to know what that was. I was like,
You wanted to
what
touch
is?
it almost,
I want to
no?
touch it, yeah. And then I was like, I saw there was this guy. I think it was a BMW, like a Z4, like the underswarming era. And
Okay.
I saw this like a picture of this clay modeler in front of the car, and I was like, you know what, that looks fucking cool. I
Yeah.
just wanted to like touch the clay, and I did. Again, nobody at college could tell me, what that was, or where you could experience something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
So I was pretty excited about it when we got to see it and touch it at Coventry. It was a big day for me.
It's cool though because even still to today, like you see clay in person, you just like you have to just get a little piece and just ball it up and play with it.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
gotta
yeah,
touch it.
yeah.
It just clay is so much fucking fun. Like I miss it so much. And I think once we start going back in, and hopefully, everyone gets back into the mood of it. But clay was such like I was really lucky at you know at work in the past, like them just being very open to like just hacking up stuff, and we was our one director was very proactive about it, so we would just take like old bucks, and they would just have them like just built up like kind of like generic, and you just take them and you just sculpt and you just sit there and like we would sit there like till 2 o'clock in the morning. We'd order pizza and then we just like we're all sitting there. We have a couple and we're just it makes that part of it is like so freaking cool when you're just there with other creatives and everyone is in that point of like extreme design vulnerability where things might work or might not. And that's just like that's such a cool point. Like when you're around Clay and like even just when you guys were when you work together close to each other, it's like just having that is really cool because at any point, that little input just puts you in a whole different way. It's like, I don't know if you watch the Avengers, but it's like those Infinity Stones. Once you take one, there's another path, no?
Yeah, no,
But
I haven't seen it, but no, I get what you're saying. Yeah.
yeah, it's really I love that stuff, man. There was one project that I worked on, and I think we were talking about it yesterday a little bit, that Infiniti Q Inspiration, like that project, we never got into scale model. It was one of those projects where we did a quick sketch, we had something similar to it, and we just milled it out, and like we just went to town on it on full scale for 2 weeks. And then we shipped it over to Japan. Like I followed it for no, for 3 months actually. And it was just freaking cool because like that was a point where I realized like you don't have to communicate, in the same language, but there's a different unspoken language. And it sounds once again a bit cliche, but like going to Japan, like I didn't know how to speak Japanese, like, and some of the modelers they knew a lot more English coming from Japanese language than I did coming from English trying to be Japanese, and they were just really, really, really cool about just me sketching there and just like I would just draw arrows, like just a surface and like this is how I want to twist it, like and it was to a point of where you're kind of creating form theory, but it's actually just to give instructions because I can't say and like, oh, just pull this out and then just imagine this smooth transition, like almost like if you think about right here on the neck, like if I'm telling him that, he's just gonna be like, "Why are you touching me, touching yourself, looking at me?" Like I have to explain it. I would draw a picture of her shoulder, and then I would show it, and then in those sense, like the visual language, it's universal. And it was really freaking cool because, there's people that are a bit more introverted, extroverted, and with that type of language, you're just completely on the same playing field. And it was cool because, like, that point, I realized as a designer, we're serving a bit more as an inspiration source and a guidance. Like we're bending the air around and then they're actually executing it. And in that sense, they come up with something a lot better. I mean, I'm going to be very honest, a lot better than I would have came up because they know, they live with that surface for 20, 30 years, some of these guys know. And I'm here just trying to guide them and give them something. And they get to create, they get to be creative. I get to be creative as well. And everyone, down to CMF and stuff like that, it was just really, really, it was one of those eye-opener projects where I was like, all right, this is how I want to start designing. No, like, so that's always been my philosophy, like in the studio, is just like, I don't try to micromanage, over certain things. There are certain things where you have to, obviously, but at some point you got to trust people. And when you trust people and you give them confidence, and if they don't have that confidence and you really believe in them and show that, then you just always have a really badass project.
Dude, on the subject of communication, like Art Martins was saying exactly the same thing. He said like when like in his early days in America, he almost he got obsessed with the amount of effort and the his skill level because he didn't feel confident enough in his English at the time.
I
So
see.
it's like he wanted to do as little talking as possible, which
That's
is
actually a good point.
yeah, which is a really good point, and I never really thought about it up until that moment. But it's like that's yeah, it's a really interesting analogy, and I guess you wouldn't think about it unless you're in that situation.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's cool because at the same time, like as you're doing that, you have great content. Like a lot of that stuff was a press sketches. Like we're just I had to keep photoshopping out the clay smudges and fingerprints, but it's cool because you just get raw stuff and that stuff is like no need to overlay it. Just show it as it is, no.
Yeah, yeah.
They're pure and I think that's always it's always interesting to storytell in that factor. And that's why I like music because sometimes it's just how that drum just hits and it could just be a soft hit, it could be a medium, or it could just be violent. And then they all tell a different story. And if you imagine that impact on a body side, like if it's just like a boom, what would that look like? It would probably be like subtle and then there would just be a turbulence no and then it would just probably ricochet or it might turn into something else or it might be like a Peugeot where they just cut it in half and it's now copper like in that sense I think that visual distortion that story that romance that like just the philosophy is just fucking bad. That's what drives me. I love that shit so much.
Dan, what? How does your wife put up with all this shit? What does she do?
Oh man. So shout out to Yang Fu. She's one of my
Shout
best
out to
friends.
Yang.
She knows both of us very, very well. She always says my wife is a freaking saint because I'm very all over the place, and my wife is just like, she's just very composed and just straightforward. So we're both completely opposite, but that's why we just fit together. She's been my secret sauce like throughout Art Center and even secretly through part of my career. Like I show her a lot of like in Art Center every time I'd show her like tell me if this is shit or not, and she just look at it and go like maybe you should try a different color. I'm like, all right, I got to do it all over again. No, like, because when you get someone else's fresh point of view that hasn't been baking into this like recipe and they just taste it for the first time, they just go like, oh, it has too much salt. There's instinctual reaction. And I love that stuff. Like, I don't care, like, don't have to sugarcoat it. Just tell me, is it good or bad? And just, let's just keep moving forward. No. So, like, I've just been very fortunate that my wife is has that type of personality and is really understanding. So like anything I do, whether it's once again painting, just going out, like going to a museum, even just talking about design or about something like, hey, I'm doing this side project. Like, what do you think about it? She's always, and she has good taste too. So I'm lucky. My taste is, it gets a bit like, I tend to stick with the same thing. So sometimes she's like, that looks like something you would do. Maybe you should try something different. I'm like, oh, okay, thanks. So I'm bowling and she's my bumpers.
Okay. But and when you like just do like 14-hour days all the time, is she
Oh, she
does she
knows.
not
She's
get
been there
pissed
through
off?
Art Center. She
Okay. All
usually
right.
actually she went to school for she went to FIDM. It's called Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising. So she went for the business side of fashion design. And so she's very understanding of like the more creative side. And she used to also um every other day she would come to Art Center and just like chill in. This is before they had like gates and like you everyone had to show their stuff. Like she just stroll in, she's there like in Jason Hill's class in the back, like just listening to the crits and like and all a lot of the instructors know her. No, they thought she was like an illustration major or something, and we just said, "Oh yeah." But she would just do homework in the back, and so she knew it, and she knows all the guys, like all my friends, and we all hang out and when I just tell him like, hey, it's gonna be a crazy month. She's like, all right, just go does her own thing and just leaves me alone. So I'm very very fortunate for that.
Yeah, that's very cool. It's very, very
It's
cool.
hard to come across.
It is. It is. But I mean, you guys have been together a long time as well,
Yeah, yeah,
right? I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. We know. I mean, we've known each other since we were 12 years old. So there you go.
Wow. Fucking hell. So Dan, what did you ever go and see like live bands, live music in
Yes.
in New Jersey?
Oh, not in New Jersey. Sorry, I jumped too soon. Actually, I haven't been to Jersey. I've probably been back to Jersey 5 times since I've moved out here.
Have you ever been to the Stone Pony?
No,
Have you heard of this? You don't know the Stone Pony? No.
no.
Right.
It
Okay. Well, it
sounds
doesn't.
rad.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's like this place that Bruce Springsteen used to play at, or he still does, I think. And there's a bunch of other rock bands that play there as well.
That's
Like,
sick.
yeah, yeah,
Actually, I
yeah.
have been to one of like the E Street bands a couple times. One of their concerts, and my stepdad's really much into that type of music, so he was always
Dude,
taking us.
I was, I never had any time for Bruce Springsteen, but there was a family friend that's like a fucking diehard Bruce fan, and he got me into him. And he used to play London every year. I think he does still, plays Hyde Park.
Okay.
And I went to see him, I think it's 2012, and I was fucking converted there and then.
No way.
Yeah, amazing.
Was it the energy or was it actually the song, the music?
Everything, but I listened. I started listening. I mean, it was before I even went to the show. I started warming up to it because I like whenever I thought of Bruce Springsteen, it would be like Born in the USA, and
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, that's the fucking worst song in the world. But he also like that song's supposed to be taken in like it's an ironic song, which I didn't realize. And I always just associated him with that, and it was an instant turn off. But he's got so many fucking great songs, and it's the storytelling, the imagery, and the people, and the places, and that I really, really resonated with. And then I went to go see him play at Hyde Park. And you've got this guy in his 60s, and he's got an energy of a fucking 18-year-old playing for like 3 hours solid.
That's sick.
And like this monster band behind him as well, and it was outrageous. I saw him, another New York native, Paul Simon. They were doing a 25th anniversary of Graceland, and it was Springsteen on the Saturday and Paul Simon on the Sunday, and those two concerts are fucking amazing.
That's
absolutely
cool.
Incredible. Absolutely amazing.
Well, now you're gonna get me all like, I'm gonna go on YouTube and watch some stuff because maybe I need
Dude,
to start appreciating this side.
No, you have to, especially there. And then, so there's another band that I got into at the same time, around the same, probably a little bit earlier, around 2009. They are from New Jersey as well, called the Gaslight Anthem. And it's like this, they were like very much like, almost the lead singer Brian Fallon is almost like he was heavily inspired by Bruce and Bob Dylan and whatnot, but they were like this punk rock outfit but storytelling like Springsteen, and fuck, that was such good music, really, really great music. It made me want to go to New Jersey. I haven't been though, but I would love to go. And
Well, I'll
check
tell
out
you,
all
if you ever
those
go, I'll
places.
tell you where and where not to go.
I know there's some ropey places.
Yeah, but it's
Yeah.
part of the fun. It's part of the, the grit. Would you say that there's a band out there today that kind of has that type of punk that they used to have, like
Well, there
back in the
probably
day?
is, but there probably is, but it's been a while since I've like seen like something new that I really like. And I'm also, like, as I said to you earlier on, like, I don't want to be this like this old guy that's like, oh yeah, like music's bullshit today, because obviously there's a lot of fucking bullshit today.
Yeah.
There just is, because, and it's also this kind of it's not just with music, but I think it's with the fashion and culture in general, where everything has become a lot more global. So it isn't. I was thinking about the whole '90s music scene in America versus what was happening in the UK, and I mean, that's happened throughout history. But I mean, if you look at like how big a band like Nirvana was, and how big a band like Oasis was, I mean, both of them were probably the biggest bands of that time.
Yeah.
But the sound was, they couldn't be more different, those two bands, and it's because of their influences and where they come from,
Yeah.
But I mean, it doesn't mean that it's all bad, because you can also have some kid growing up in England now, like, that's heavily inspired by Springsteen, for example. I mean, there's a guy actually who's called Sam Fender, and he's got some interesting stuff. He's like heavily inspired by Springsteen, and he grew up in a very working class town in the north of England, and all the same themes like reoccurring, but from what he's experienced. You know, like it's all about like, you know, going to the factory and
Yeah.
working your ass off for no money, and then recession comes and you get retrenched, and you can't provide for your family, and or it's like, you know, the happy stuff, like I'm gonna save up all my money and buy a fucking Chevy and go racing on Saturday night with Johnny, and you know, stuff like that. um I don't really know where I'm fucking going with this, but yeah, the point is that there is. I'm not saying that there isn't anything that doesn't exist today like that, but
Yeah.
I'm just very. I'm a bit of a music snob, and I'm hypersensitive to stuff. I listen to a lot of old shit.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Yeah,
I guess on that topic, like, would you say that kind of going back to your previous point, would you say that we're just um, desensitized from the overstimulation of like just content? Like, I mean, you have Pinterest, you have Instagram, you know, a
yeah,
lot of these things where maybe I don't know, there's sometimes where I have to take a bit of a hiatus
yeah,
because it's a bit intimidating at sometimes, or maybe
yeah,
it's just information overload where you cannot see like you know, what are you really looking at? No, like there's sometimes where I go on like Instagram just to, hey, let me see if there's like some new visuals or something like that, or you know, there's a new band or there's something going on locally. But then you just get sidetracked and you're just like 3 hours
yeah,
later, you're just like, whoa, like
yeah,
can I defrag?
yeah, 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 yeah.
But in some sense, like I think also like one thing to kind of veer back into the car thing, like at some point I was having a conversation with somebody about this the other day, like when now you have these car companies that are showing their content a bit early to get kind of like the overall audience impression. Like I wonder now, because things have such a shorter shelf life on a phone or on a PC, or let's just say a screen. Um, by the time those vehicles come out, are people already exhausted about it? No, do we lose like it made sense to kind of be very transparent, but since our you know our industry's turnaround time tends to be a bit longer, is there a different way that we approach that type of stuff? And I also think it's quite interesting too, on the other hand, where you know when things are created digitally and remain digitally, you do still have the chance of still updating it. You know, like there's once again, not to get to just mainstream people, but like I think it was like an album or two ago of Kanye West that was interesting. The Life of Pablo, that he was basically kept updating it. You know, every week, and there was a song that was completely different. And was it cool as the audience or as a fan? It was like, oh, what the hell's happening? Like, dude, come on, just stamp it. But at some
Well,
time, there was something to it that was like people were like, maybe there's some genius into it. No, so I wonder if we're doing like digital car shows, is there certain things that do we have an algorithm or something that these things start to evolve and adjust to taste, or maybe not? I'm curious to see what you think about that.
um, well, on the like, dude, I okay. On the subject of music, there's something to be said for an album at a specific point, a
Yeah,
moment in time. It's like a photograph, like a Polaroid of this moment. And when you, like, if you go back to what you were talking about right at the beginning, when you're working on something and you were listening to a certain song or an album, and it kind of, you know, jogs your memory, if you're getting stuck and you want to go back to that pattern of thought, it's like, you know, when you listen to a certain album, it might remind you of a period, of a time in your life when you were going through something positive or negative, or somebody you were with, etc.,
yeah,
etc. And I think if you start fucking with it, and you constantly evolving it all the time, um, you kind of spoil that.
that's true.
So
That's a
I'm
good
not
point.
like on that with regard to that. You know, I'm not really into it. I didn't really know. I didn't know that I didn't know that Kanye was doing that. On the subject of Kanye West, we'll get back to cars in a second. I I have to be on it, and again, I'm gonna sound like this old loser now, but I liked his early stuff, and I had this
Yeah.
conversation with Tarek. Tarek's like, yeah, no, his old stuff was great, but Tarek's talking about my Twisted Dark. Is it my
My
Twisted
beautiful
Dark?
dark twisted fantasy.
That
Yeah.
album. So for him, that's old. I'm talking about College Dropout and
And late registration.
my fuck,
Yeah.
those albums, like I that give me that shit all day
I
long.
know.
After that, I think the album after that, I it wasn't bad. I there was a Daft Punk collaboration on there.
Yes.
Bigger, faster, stronger. That album was okay. After that, game over for me.
Yeah.
I didn't. I need to go and listen to that album, My Twisted Dark
Yeah.
Blacks, whatever. I need to listen to that with an open mind. But
Maybe you
I
should
don't know.
watch the visual. There's like a movie.
No. Okay. I will watch the movie. I'll
It
watch
might
it.
give it
I'll
a
watch it.
little bit more depth.
No, I will. But that doesn't. I don't know. There's. I think the guy is. I don't know. I think he's really, really fucking hyped up, and I
Yeah.
don't. I don't know. I don't get it. And I think he he's like a self-professed quote unquote genius, and I definitely don't fucking put him in that category. You know, I really don't, and I know that it might offend a lot of people, but I don't put him in that category at all.
Yeah, yeah. Well, everyone
But
has their own opinion. It's good.
yes. But anyway, on so with I don't know how that would relate to cars. I mean, if you were to um yeah, I don't know. Are you talking about something staying digital?
Maybe what I was mentioning is like for exterior it's a bit different, no, but when you're talking about like user interface, a lot of this like over the air updates and stuff like that, and this one of the things that living in LA, you see a ton of Teslas everywhere. I
Yes.
mean, they're like before there were Civics, then it evolved to 3 Series, and then now they're Teslas everywhere.
No, it's all about
Um, and the interesting thing is that, like when you talk to people, you try to figure out what is kind of the charisma of that car. And I think a lot of people are just like an iPhone. Like you can have the newest 13, 12, you can have a 5S, you can have a 10. Listen, they're all going to do a similar thing and they can all be updated to that point where they feel recent, but yet the hardware might be lacking, whatever. But no one really looks at it. At the end of the day, there's a screen and you just have like things popping up on it. In some sense, the Tesla is like, or even I'm not sure what other competitors will do that, but when things are just so simplified, and then you have the the hierarchy of the car being the software or that thing that can evolve throughout time. I'm always question like because we always I mean in school we always try to come up with these projects, with the face, like if you can change the headlights and the tail light and all this stuff, no. And but as technology goes and it evolves, and we're starting to see things that we would be like, I mean, today's production cars are 10, 20 years ago, those were show cars, no, those were concept cars, and
yeah.
that gap is getting closer. So I just always like I'm curious to see. I always like to look at trends on other industries and see how could they relate to us, or how does it impact us, or how, or maybe it's just nothing. Maybe you just look at it and you're just overthinking it, no. But
Yeah.
I thought there was something interesting about that because like I rented one just for, hey, I want to try it out. Like I want to see what the
Yeah.
hype is. And
Yeah.
you get out of it and you go back into your car and like, oh shit, I got buttons again.
Well,
It's the
that
weirdest feeling.
yeah, well, that's what they say. Like, you kind of, if you go, after driving, if you drive a Tesla and you go back into a normal car, it kind of feels like your car's a bit stupid almost.
And is it just not caught up? Would if you had a little tiny screen this small and it just would that be enough? Maybe not. I'm not sure. But
I
I
don't.
think there's a definitely a like a psychological thing. And someone mentioned it the other day. This I think it was actually we were talking with Tony, and he goes, "There's just like this subliminal teaching that's going on with a lot of these cars," and I think that's freaking fascinating. Like I think there's with social media, with anything that we're going through, with just politics and taste, we're going through that period of time where like we're slowly being crafted into accepting a new type of realm of whatever that we don't know what it is, but as creators and as people that look at trends, you feel something coming, and I think that's super exciting as well because you with overabundance and how would you, the oversaturation of content being shown, something has to change. Something has to be breakthrough to a point where, and hey, maybe it's by the time Elon goes to Mars, maybe we have a space race and everyone, now you just start seeing crazy cars again. No, maybe that's as simple as it is. It's one of those small turn of events that just is a catalyst for, revolution.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some crazy shit happen. Yeah, it's we are definitely in unprecedented times,
It's
and
gonna
I
be
think
fun, man.
yeah, it is going to be fun. Yeah, as long as we don't, fucking blow up the world, and
Yeah, let's
I
try not to
think
do that.
yeah, let's try not to do that. Yeah, dude, I don't know. I mean, and then there's on the subject of digital stuff. I mean, there's this whole metaverse fucking thing happening, like this parallel digital world where, we're gonna be immersed in that a
Yeah.
lot, and yeah, I don't know that it's also very very cool, but dude, I just I don't know. It's very enticing, but it's also fucking terrifying
It is
because
terrifying.
because it's so yeah, it's so difficult to fully unplug, to
Yeah.
really just unplug.
Yeah.
Um,
And as humans,
yeah,
we have, naturally you get if you get caught up into something, like when you put on a VR headset and you're just in there, and you're just playing around with things and you're just watching this and that and you unplug and you're just like it's like you just woke up, It's kind of this
yeah,
artificial dreaming in a sense, but you get to pick what you want to do, I think that's
yeah,
really cool, but at the same time, there's different ways. All good things have, it's like gravity. You push it this way, you pull it this way, it's gonna push another way, So
yeah,
there's
yeah,
always a
yeah.
balance, but I think there is something cool to the. How do you feel like as a modeler? Like how has that changed, or how do you think that's gonna change your guys' landscape?
Um, I think it's great. I think it's cool. I think look, the one thing like people need to understand. I think especially like younger people starting out is that um, if with regard to the whole VR thing, there's a lot to be said for like having an expressive hand gesture, creating in 3D space and whatever. But you still need to learn how to put a car together. You
Yeah,
still need to learn surface tension. You still need to learn how to control a line, a body side. And those things, I was talking to Tony about that actually, and those things are kind of, those that's not something you just fucking learn overnight.
yeah,
You really have to spend time with it, and you will think like, and we've all been there. I literally remembered like after I don't know, a year, 18 months of being a modeler, I thought like, oh fuck, I know I can do it all, that's it. I'm there. And then you see somebody that can like really sculpt a body side, and you like at the time you just like um you tell yourself you think you can do it, but when you go and sit and you try and build it and you try and replicate it with that tension and the highlights all running nicely and everything, you realize like fuck, I don't know shit. You know how to use the program, and it's like I don't know. To really master it is like
yeah,
it gets exponentially harder.
yeah,
But the
yeah,
thing is, I'm fucking really excited about it as well, to experiment with it and play with it. And I actually haven't done all that much playing with it. I mean, when we were in Potsdam, they were. It's not. It's, again, I think I said this to Tony. It's not a secret because they published it and everything. But they were developing a tool in house, and I played with it then a little bit, and it was fun, like a sketching, like a 3D sketching tool, like creating surfaces and everything, like Gravity Sketch is doing now, or they were, I mean they have been doing.
Yeah.
And but I didn't get to play with it all that much. You know, I had to play around with it, and I actually just yesterday received a headset from Gravity Sketch and to play around with it. So I will be able to tell you that, give you a more informed update.
That'll be cool.
So, yeah, it's a fucking long-winded response to a question. Yeah, sorry.
No worries,
It's
man.
yeah, no, it's exciting, dude. I want to, especially as it gets more and more comfortable, you know. And there's a lot to be said for, like, you know, it's one thing looking at something on a screen, but then to actually sit and to be able to kind of walk around it and feel it in
Absolutely.
a more I don't know, one-to-one scale, and
Yeah.
it feels there's a lot to be said for that. But in terms of, I don't know, like in terms of creating in 3D and creating in VR, I don't know. It's too early for me to comment on
Yeah.
it one way or the other.
I think if there is any creating in VR, I think it's, you know, it would be interesting to take a critique in VR and like, could you put like clay balls or tape balls and, you know, like, could you literally lasso out a section and just like morph out that rear, maybe not building stuff, but I think a bit of, you know, kind of photoshopping, but in 3D, that would be sick. No, like, I think
Yeah,
to that level, because having done some critiques in like VR and stuff like that, and even when people are, you know, other side of the world, it's really cool to see them. Like we had this one system at one point where like their head was turning, and then you're like, oh, I can see so and so, like he's moving his head this way, but it's, you don't see him, you just see this like this avatar, and it's kind of like glitching, and it just like goes here, and
yeah,
but
yeah,
it's,
yeah,
in some sense, it was enough information to still read the body language of that person.
yeah,
And
yeah,
also
yeah,
you got to see where they were looking. Like if you saw all the like avatars around the rear end, you're like, either that rear end is like really nice or it's shit.
yeah. I
um
and dude, there's something really fucking cool about and I haven't done it all that much, but I know it's possible, about, like, you know, having a review with people remotely, especially if it's on the other side of the world, and then experiencing what you've just experienced now, you know, what you're
yeah,
talking about. But I think the tools just need, you know, they I mean, they already a lot better than what they were even a couple of years ago. But I think
yeah,
they still need to, you know, get a bit more sophisticated.
yeah. And honestly, like even, you know, Alias introducing the sub D, oh man, that was so much fun. It's like,
I still haven't really used it, to be
oh
honest.
man, it's so much fun.
Dude,
It,
the thing is, for me, I'm such a fucking imbecile. Like, it would take too much. I know it's really simple, but it's almost like it would take me too much mental energy to learn something new than to just carry on doing what I'm doing at the
I
moment.
thought the
But
same thing, and then I tried it, and there was this one guy, interior manager. He's like, "Dude, you have to do it. You have to do it. You have to do it." I'm like, "Antonio, I'll do it. I'll try it." And I did it, and I was like, "Oh shit, this is really easy." Like, if you think about it, like just, you know, inserting spans and just more, because honestly, like I'm a type of dude, like I'll make a proportion model or something, but I want to morph that thing nonstop, no, until it's just right. And it was really good.
yeah,
When you have skins, I was never good at T-rigging or the Lattice rig or whatever. So I'm
no,
just like,
yeah.
all right, this is perfect for me.
But honestly, I think, I mean, there's a lot to be said for that, and I think that's, sorry, I've just fucking poured water all over my keyboard, but I think we're all good now.
That's good.
Um, there's a lot to be said for that, and I think, you know, for just being able to, like, morph the volume. Um, and when you are developing a volume, it's really useful to be able to do that. And I
Yeah.
think that like Sub D definitely allows you to do that, and of course polygon modeling allows you to do that.
Yeah, yeah.
So but dude, the thing is, I don't have any fucking time. I just don't. I've got to really be strict with myself now to set aside some time to fuck around with this VR headset that these people have sent me. So
That's
I
cool.
need,
You'll have fun
yeah,
with it.
yeah,
You
I
have to
will.
get some other games on it too, just to experience like.
Well, dude, a friend of mine, a friend of mine's got a headset at home, and he fired up this boxing game, dude, and it was
Oh
fucking
man.
terrifying, dude, because I like you're in the ring and the crowd's going, and this guy comes up to you and he fucking decks you in the face, and I'm like, I thought I dodged it, and I just kept on getting hit, and I had to take it off because I was fucking terrified.
Imagine if the headset like vibrated or something.
Yeah, well, I mean, it does very subtly,
Oh
but I mean,
really?
yeah, but I mean, if imagine it like actually like physically shocked you to the point of like pain,
You knock out.
knockout. Yeah,
Like, mom, it's not what it looks like.
yeah, that'll be pretty mad.